Good evening and welcome to the 6 p.m. July 11th, 2017 Ogden City Council meeting. This is the first of two meetings. The first one is the Redevelopment Agency meeting. Please note that all board members are present, as well as board member Nadolski is on electronically. You just want to say, hey.
Hello, thank you.
All right, with that, I'll turn the time over to Vice Chair Heyer for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, thank you. Chair White, I've asked Board Member Blair if he would lead us in the pledge today.
Thank you. Will the audience please rise? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please take a moment of silence with me. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is approval of minutes. The first is the special meeting of October 4th, 2016. Board Member Garner.
Yes, Chair White, I've reviewed those minutes and found them to be correct to the best of my recollection.
And the regular meeting of April 11th, 2017. Board Member Lopez.
Yes, Chair White, I reviewed the minutes, found them to be accurate, and I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Board Member Lopez, second by Board Member Garner. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next on the agenda is reports from administration.
Mr. Cooper will be presenting this.
Chair White, members of the board, good evening. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your service. I appreciate it. Tonight's consideration is for proposed resolution 2017-4, which establishes the Adams survey area. This survey area is bounded by 20th Street to the north and 28th Street to the south, Washington Boulevard to the west, and Jefferson Avenue to the east. The map is in front of you here. The proposed resolution also authorizes and directs the administration to do some study in this boundary and to determine the feasibility of development projects that could exist within this area, and also authorizes the creation of a draft plan based on some of that study. Quite a few months ago, staff conducted two open houses in the vicinity of this survey area, this boundary. Notice was given to all the addresses within this boundary, and those residences and businesses were invited to attend two open houses. One was an initial open house to introduce this area to that neighborhood and to solicit feedback for issues that may or may not exist in the area, to also get ideas in terms of what could be done in the area to improve the housing, the businesses, the services, the neighborhoods in general. Second open house was held a few months after that. Once that information was received and compiled, that information was then distributed to the folks that attended, and again, some additional feedback was received. And so all of that information has been helpful for us in determining not only this boundary, but also what could possibly happen within the boundary. Tonight's action is, again, just establishing the survey area. It's one step in a step of many based on state law. So tonight is a resolution designating the survey area. Once we conduct some additional study based on the feedback we've already received, and also additional study that that would take place, we would prepare a draft project area plan. That project area plan would be made public, and public comment could be made on the plan. It would be made available here at the recorder's office during normal business hours for 30 days. And then once a public hearing on the draft plan has taken place, then action would be taken on that plan by the board. The plan would consist of a number of different things related to the potential feasible development in the area. It would talk about the number of projects, where the projects would potentially be located, tax increment, if any, associated with the projects. I think it's important to note that tonight's action and any action that's subsequent to tonight's action does not include eminent domain. So this project area, which is the Adams Community Reinvestment Area, would not include the use of eminent domain. So I think that's an important note to make. There are a number of potential projects that could take place here. One of them being something that you're familiar with already, which is on the old D-School property. We're currently working with our community development staff to look at the construction of 20 or 23 homes there, along with a new public street. There's a number of things that are in the works in terms of projects that have come forward from private parties, and we're also looking at some areas that we would like to study to see if there's additional projects that could be feasible. So I think the process of establishing this survey is a high reward, low risk type of a process established by the state. In terms of the benefit that comes from these types of studies, we learn a lot in terms of what the community members really want. I think that's a huge benefit. And then if we're successful, we're able to translate this type of activity into real, tangible investment made by existing owners, investment made by the city, investment made by the other taxing entities, and also investment made by private parties. So we have quite a few of these project areas on the books. They're generally known as RDAs. CRA, the Community Redevelopment Area, is a new moniker for this otherwise familiar process. So the recommendation to you tonight is to approve Resolution 2017-4, establishing the Adams Survey Area.
Brandon, what part does the community plan play in this survey?
By state law, the municipal boundary in which these are established must have a general plan, which we do, so we meet that checkbox. And the project plan that would be brought forth based on our study would need to be consistent with the general plan of the city. And so those are the things that we look at and kind of go over as we study the survey area and the feasible projects that might exist therein, and then also come forward with the draft plan. We check through all of those things. And generally speaking, everything that is done in these types of areas are consistent and fulfill the objectives of the general plan.
And the community plan also?
Right. The community plan is a function of the general plan, and again, it would all be consistent. Thanks.
So we need to open it up for public input. Yes.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Please state your name and address.
I will. Richard Vondras, and I live in North Ogden, and we have a business at 136 25th Street, Endless Indulgence Retroware, which I'd kind of like to discuss for a minute.
And is it regarding this area, this project area?
Yes,
Okay.
it's on 25th Street.
Fantastic.
And I'm not totally sure where to start, I guess, but we had a robbery in our store last week and a half ago, and I've contacted the police, and I gave them video and so on. And in fact, Captain Danielle and a Captain Troy came in today. I think they were just walking the beat, and we had a good discussion about it. But I'd like to start a campaign. We have video cameras on the 200 block, the flashing blue lights, and there's one on Lincoln and 25th, and And then there's one up by Roosters, and you've added one on Washington and 25th. And I guess I'm looking for, how do we get something going on the 100 block? I'd like to see 2 cameras in the middle of the block, maybe one and one on Wall and 25th. I did talk to Lieutenant Kevin Cottrell last Thursday when I turned in the video to the detectives, and he said he would start kind of the process and looking into it. He knew about the cameras, so I'm just, I guess, here to find out what do I need to do to get some more cameras on 25th Street, I guess, because they have them on the 200 block, but nothing on the 100 block. I know all about socks. On the corner down there has been robbed theft 4 or 5 times. We've been hit 3 times by the same girl. This last one was about a $500 take. And True North has been hit several times. So we kind of have a problem, and I'm just asking for help on direction, I guess.
Okay. I think more of that would be better addressed if you talk to administration regarding.
Now that I've heard it, we'll take it and run with it. I'll get with the police department together. We'll work on trying to put some cameras in the 100 block.
Yeah, I know it was part of 25th Street, and I think the association a couple years ago when they were working on it, and now we have the Alliance, and so I don't know just where or how to channel my efforts.
You have a wonderful idea. Let me go to work on it.
Okay, I would appreciate it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And we have Assistant Chief Young here. Between one of us, we'll make sure you get contacted back.
Thank you. Any other comments regarding the Adams Community Reinvestment Area? That's really hard to say, by the way, Brandy. All right. No other comments.
Chair White, then, without any further discussion, I would make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2017-4, authorizing the establishment of the survey area.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Heyer, second by Board Member Stevens, to adopt proposed Resolution 2017-4. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Blair?
Aye.
Board Member Gardner?
Aye.
Board Member Lopez?
Aye.
Board Member Nadolski?
Aye.
Board Member Stevens?
Aye.
Vice Chair Heyer?
Aye.
Chair White?
Aye, that passes. Establishing that survey. Next on our agenda is public comments. It's an opportunity to address the board regarding any concerns or ideas on any topic. Seeing no movement, we'll go on to the next agenda item, comments from the Executive Director.
Chair, I just want to make a comment that I think Brandon has done an amazing job. The last time we wanted to have one of these, it didn't go so well. And we've done a lot of different things. We've done a lot of things in the community, and I'm grateful for Brandon's effort, and I think we're going the right direction when we try and set up one of these.
Board members?
I echo what Marcus said. We had the opportunity to listen to the public and the citizens in that area, and we were able to formulate, I think, a more productive process by looking at that area. So it's beneficial in having those open houses and receiving the instructions from the citizens.
Comments? Motion?
Without any more comments, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Heyer, second by Board Member Garner to adjourn. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. All right. Good evening and welcome to the special City Council meeting of July 11th, 2017. Please note that all council members are present Councilmember Nadolski is coming in electronically. Councilmember Nadolski.
Thank you, Chair White.
All right. Moving on, we have a couple of recognitions. And the first one is Colette Mercier, and I get the pleasure of reading this. I took the pleasure of reading it. There were many that were fighting me for this. So. The Ogden City Council and Mayor proudly recognize Colette Mercier for providing invaluable contributions to the Ogden community. Colette Mercier has played an instrumental role in strengthening the education system in Ogden and across the state. She dedicated more than 32 years of her career to Ogden Weber Applied Technology College, serving as the school's president for the last 10 years. During her tenure, President Mercier brought together Utah's technology colleges and built relationships with community partners, including Ogden City and Weber State University. Before President Mercier's appointment to OWATC's top leadership position, she served as the college's Vice President for Instructional Services and as the first Chief Academic Officer for the Utah College of Applied Technology. President Mercier has been extensively involved with community organizations such as the Weber Economic Development Partnership, Ogden Weber Chamber of Commerce, Weber County Production Managers Association, and Ogden United Board. We are grateful for President Mercier's leadership, dedication, and partnership. Her contributions to the Ogden community are immensely appreciated, and we look forward to all that she will accomplish in the next chapter of her life. With this, I would like to present this to you, President Mercier.
Gotta go down the line.
Big photo.
Just have you right here.
Right where you're at. Thanks, Colette. Now we'll ask you to say
Yes, please.
Oh my goodness, this is really quite an honor, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the opportunity that I've had in terms of the recognition from the community and the opportunities with working with the college and the city and the county and the employers and our students. I mean, it has just been an incredible experience. I would have never thought in my life that I would end up in Ogden, Utah, and have the opportunity to work at the same educational institution for almost 33 years. I mean, that was certainly never on my horizon. But what a blessing it was to move out here, to get involved with the college almost by chance. It was a really, interesting kind of by chance way that I got involved with the college in the first place back in 1984. And I found my place there. As I got to know what they did over there and the impact it made on the community and our students, I thought, I'm in the right place. And I struggled with that a little bit when I was in Michigan and wasn't sure I was in the right place at the right time, but this was the right place at the right time for me. And the opportunity to get to know the people in the city, and even though we serve all of Weber County, I think I've mentioned this to almost everyone in here, we're located in Ogden City. Ogden is our home. And so that really gives us a special place in our heart for Ogden City, even though we serve the entire county. And I don't know what we do without the support of the county as well as the city. But again, we've got that special place because Ogden is our home. Thank you so much for all the years that we've had the opportunity to work together, the support you've given the college, the support you've given the students, the opportunities that we have had to build in our community to provide a better place for people to live, to work, to be able to stay and raise families here. I've so enjoyed the opportunity to get to know each of you, working with the city staff and city council members, and just what a great opportunity. It's been kind of a bittersweet. I mean, I knew it was time to retire. Thought, okay, it's been long enough. It's time to move on and let someone else take my place. And I have to admit, I'm just thrilled that Jim Taggart is the next president. He is just as committed to the institution, to the community, to our employers as I have been. So he is going to be wonderful to continue to work with in both the city and the city council. And if you don't know him very well, you wait. You get to know this guy. He is going to be just tremendous. And he's not going to change the flavor of the institution, I hope, because we've really done some good things this past 10 to 15 years to kind of change, I think, how we are looked, how we are viewed upon. And he's just going to strengthen that during his tenure as president. So just know that I know I can speak on behalf of the college. I know I can, that we will continue to be there, to be working with you every day, every week in projects, working with our citizens, our community members, to ensure that we just continue to make Ogden City and Weber County just the strongest and best place to live in the state of Utah. So thank you so much for this wonderful recognition. That's just very, very kind of you. It's always going to have a special place in my heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm just going to excuse myself, okay?
Definitely be missed.
Thank you very much.
Good luck in the next chapter.
Thank you.
We look forward to great things.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not sure yet where I'm going to land, but I'm not moving. This is my home now, and I'm going to, at some point, get back involved and find some place to continue to make contributions, because that's what you do when you find a place that you love and is your home. You get involved, you stay involved, and you make it a better place. And I intend to do that after taking a little bit of break. So I'm sure I'll see you all again in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was the lucky one.
You do get, well, I'm pretty lucky though.
Yeah, I guess. All right, next on the agenda is the Night Out Against Crime proclamation. Vice Chair Heyer.
See, I do get to be lucky tonight too. So, all right. Well, thank you, Chair White. This is a joint proclamation of the Ogden City Council and Mayor declaring August 1st, 2017, and I think we got to work on this, National Night Out Day in the Ogden City. That sounds kind of like an oxymoron, but we could work on that. Whereas National Night Out Against Crime is a community building campaign designed to heighten crime prevention awareness, generate support for local anti-crime programs, and strengthen neighborhood spirit. National Night Out is observed annually on the first Tuesday in August by more than 16,000 communities throughout the United States, including several communities in Utah. And whereas National Night Out is an opportunity to build partnerships and healthy relationships between law enforcement and the community, and send a message to criminals that our neighborhoods are organized and fighting back. The campaign, which dates back 33 years, was organized by the National Association of Town Watch on the premise that the most effective way to combat crime is to create a community mission. And whereas National Night Out increases awareness of police programs and allows residents to meet and mingle with law enforcement officials, emergency service personnel, firefighters, search and rescue workers, animal service personnel, and citizen emergency response teams from throughout Weber County. It is one of the most successful and wildly attended police events, with approximately 1,500 people attending last year's events. And whereas the 2017 National Night Out event will take place at the Ogden Amphitheater in downtown Ogden from 5:30 to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, August 1st. Throughout the evening, there will be many opportunities for residents to gather information and services at no cost. This year's event will be held in conjunction with Animal Services Bark in the Park, and will include free food, prizes, free bike helmets, and a rock climbing wall, free ice screenings, and a police canine demo. And whereas Ogden residents are asked to join people from across the nation in locking their doors, turning on their porch lights, and spending the evening outside with neighbors, law enforcement officials, public safety personnel, community groups, and businesses to aid in the fight against crime and build a stronger community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Ogden City Council and Mayor Michael P. Caldwell hereby proclaim August 1st, 2017 as National Night Out Day in Ogden City. We encourage residents to take advantage of the opportunity to learn more about crime prevention and public safety by attending the National Night Out event. We appreciate the significant efforts of those in our community who continue to make this annual event a success, and we are grateful for the outstanding and often arduous work law enforcement officials and public safety personnel perform on a daily basis to keep our community safe. So, with that, I would let me turn my there we go. Would make a motion that we adopt joint proclamation. Well, this joint proclamation. I don't have a date. Number. Right? Yep. Okay. All right. That's my motion.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Heyer, second by Councilmember Blair to adopt Night Out Against Crime. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes.
We do have Assistant Chief Young and Diana Lopez here with us to receive this tonight, and have them come up and appreciate their efforts in making this a success. Thank you. You pick your own way. Yeah, we gotta have a group shot.
Oh.
Right here. Come this way, Eric. About it.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. We want to hear from you. So.
I'm going to just take 2 seconds just to say that I appreciate the council's support of this program. It's great, and it's become a hugely successful program, in part to one person standing behind me. Diana Lopez has done an amazing job growing this event over the past 2 years, and the support and the applause and recognition should be for Diana. So thanks, Diana.
So much. I appreciate it. Every year so far, I've been here 2.5. It's grown about 500 each time. So this year we're hoping we're going to break the 2,000 mark of attendees. So you guys are all welcome. We hope you guys are all there. Vice Chair Heyer has already volunteered to be our chew toy for the dog. So I'm going to hold him to it. And then the mayor hopefully will also be there. And if anyone else wants to jump in the bite suit. I know Councilmember East
We
has
call
done
that
it.
dinner.
Call that dinner.
The dogs call it dinner.
They just call it fun.
So it's a super fun time. So we invite anybody out in the community to come out and hang out with us and have a fun time. So thank you.
Tell us again the time.
5:30 to 8 o'clock. So just right over there. So thank
Thanks,
you.
Diana.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I have a vendetta with the dog from last year. He took me down. I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again.
This is going to be on the master calendar.
It'll be in the obituaries. For
I'll
me.
take the dog. My money's on the dog.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Mine too. All right, next on the agenda is approval of minutes. The regular meeting of December 20th, 2016. Vice Chair Heyer.
Yes, Chair White, I have reviewed those minutes and found them to be accurate and to the best of my recollection.
The regular meeting of March 7th, 2017, and the work session of March 28th, 2017. Councilmember Blair.
Yes, I have reviewed those minutes and found them to be accurate.
The regular meeting of March 28th, 2017, and the closed session of March 28th, 2017. Councilmember Garner.
Yes, Chair White, I've reviewed those minutes and found them to be correct.
The joint session of April 4th, 2017, and the regular meeting of April 4th, 2017. Councilmember Lopez.
Yes, Chair White, I reviewed the minutes and found them to be accurate to the best of my recollection.
And the joint session of April 11th, 2017, and the special meeting of April 11th, 2017. Vice Chair Heyer.
Yes, I also reviewed those minutes and found them to be accurate as well.
And last, the regular meeting of October 4th, 2016, the work session of January 17th, 2017, and the joint session of May 9th, 2017. Councilmember Stevens.
Yes, Chair, they're correct, and I make a motion that we approve the minutes that have been presented.
Second.
Chair White?
Yes.
This is Councilmember Nadolski. Before we vote, did you cover the regular meeting of December 20th?
Yes, I had Vice Chair Heyer read those, so he approved those. I didn't know if you were going to be available or not, so.
Sorry, thank you.
Yep. Motion by Councilmember Stevens, second by Vice Chair Heyer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And Chair White, kudos to Vice Chair Heyer and for Councilmember Nadowski for the regular meeting of the December 20th. Over 800 lines of notation. So for both of them to read them, that's pretty impressive.
That's why it was, to the best of my recollection. It was.
Me too.
And kudos to the recorders who are getting these to us quite quickly, so thank you. Next on our agenda is public hearings. We have two. The first one is the fiscal year 2018-2022 Capital Improvement Plan Amendment.
Camille Cook will be presenting that tonight.
Evening, Chair White and council members. It's wonderful to be with you this evening. Administration is asking for your consideration to amend the fiscal year 2018 to 2022 Capital Improvement Plan. We would like to include Project PK100, which is new arena seating at the Pioneer Stadium. This project is a collaboration with Ogden City, RAMP, the Pioneer Days Foundation, and many other community partners. The project would completely demolish the north grandstands and replace that with an aluminum structure. And the anticipation is that seats would be added to the entire north grandstand and a portion of the south grandstand as well. This project also includes a plan to remove layers of paint off the south grandstand and seal that concrete to help alleviate future maintenance costs. The city's portion of this project would be $250,000. That's included in the Schedule A1 that you'll consider with the final budget. You'll have a separate public hearing on that. This amendment, if approved, it would be anticipated that the work would begin in late summer, and these improvements would be available for all of the events in 2018 that take place at the Pioneer Stadium. So with that, we recommend that you approve Ordinance 2017-33, amending the fiscal year 2018 to 2022 Capital Improvement Plan to include Project PK100.
Was that amount the total amount?
So the $250,000 is the total amount they are requesting from the city at this point, yes.
Or between 2018 2022?
Yes, so we are requesting that would happen in the 2018 budget.
But the others are contributing as well.
It's not the total amount to replace the bleachers. To replace the bleachers is over $1 million.
About 1.3.
So they have raised the rest of the money.
Right, is our contribution.
Our contribution is $250,000.
Yes. Okay.
Any other questions? No?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing, so if there's anyone that would like to come up and talk about this capital improvement plan addition.
Seeing no movement, Chair White, I'll move that we adopt proposed ordinance 2017-33.
Close public hearing first.
No. No, we changed that.
Just don't have to open it now, but we still have to close it.
Sorry, it's a new norm. We don't understand. Do we have to close the public hearing?
So I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Garner and second by Vice Chair Heyer to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And with that, I'll make a motion now that we adopt proposed ordinance 2017-33.
I'll second that.
Motion by Councilmember Garner, second by Vice Chair Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2017-33. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Gardner.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Vice Chair Heyer.
Aye.
Chair White.
Aye, that passes. Go and do good things for our bums. Next on the agenda is the fiscal year 2018 budget. And Janine Eller-Smith.
Thank you, Chair White and council members. I'm happy to address you again tonight. This is the second of 3 opportunities that citizens can have to speak to the budget. I'm just going to briefly review what we've previously covered in the prior public hearing and in our work sessions. So in comparing the FY17 adopted to the FY18 adopted tentative, remember you've already adopted a tentative budget, you can see the difference. The general fund has increased 2.45%. CIP is down primarily because we transferred some money to the RDA. BDO infrastructure is up. And then our total city budget is actually down $15,000. And I just wanted to address briefly, Chair White asked me to address this issue about why the total budget is down. And we've had this discussion previously, but you may recall in FY17, the city did issue $17 million in water bonds, and that is part of the whole city budget. Bond revenues, bond proceeds are treated as revenues in the accounting, and that's why it's much higher in FY17. So we don't have any bond proceeds in FY18, and that's why there's that large difference there. The general fund, I just wanted again to outline the difference. There was a letter to the editor that outlined, indicating that in FY17 the budget was $199 million for the city, and now it's only $185. And why is that difference? So just to recall, we do have fund accounting in the city. We operate under government accounting practices, which means we have different funds, different pots of money that are restricted and can only be used for certain things. The general fund is where all of the tax revenues come from. So for the prior year and for the current year, that's up 2.45% as compared to FY17. The total budget, city budget, including the RDA budget and the municipal budget, which are three separate entities, total is the $885,000. And again, the difference is because of those bond proceeds that showed up in FY17. Just briefly, we have had a very lengthy process. We got the budget from the mayor on May 2nd, and we've had several work sessions. We've also already adopted the tentative budget, and that's necessary to make sure the city can operate after July 1. So that's why that's happened. Tonight we're having a public hearing, and then there'll be on the final budget, and then on August 1st we'll have our final work session, and that's when we will need direction from you regarding what you want to see in the packet for August 8th and what you'll actually be taking action on. The final public hearing will be on that August 8th date. We don't have a meeting on August 1st because of the Night Out Against Crime. So there'll be one more public hearing, one more opportunity for citizens to address the council before you take action. The proposed change, as Ms. Cook mentioned, there's an additional $250,000 that's going to the CIP. Because we do fund accounting, it's money that goes in and out and in and out. That increases the total budget by $500,000, and that's the Schedule A1. So that is the one change from the tentative budget that is proposed in the final budget. Just briefly, this budget does reflect the council's priorities in terms of healthy living and fostering our neighborhoods, enhancing community outreach, and even our arts and culture. So I wanted to spend most of my time tonight talking about the truth in taxation. As you know, the certified tax rate is designed to produce revenue neutrality, and that is probably a lawyer's term that means we get the same amount of money every year plus a little bit of new growth. Ogden's current rate from FY17 is 0.003103, and that is, as we'd mentioned, one of the highest in the state because of it costs the same amount of money to provide services to a $167,000 house as it does to a $261,000 house or a $300,000 house. Because the average home values in Ogden are lower than many of the rest of the state, that's why our rates have to be higher. So I know that you can't read this, but I wanted to show you this to show you how complicated the calculations are to come up with that certified tax rate. These are all the numbers that the State Tax Commission uses to develop that certified tax rate. Tax Commission has simplified it a bit down to this very easy and understandable form. So they take the values of the property and they subtract RDA amounts, and then they subtract Board of Adjustment amounts, and then they times it by a collection rate of 95% because not everybody pays their taxes every year. And then that gives you the proposed rates, the proposed rate values for the city. Then they subtract new growth, and then they do a bunch of other stuff, and voila, that gives you the certified tax rate. So the certified tax rate, again, because it's meant to generate the same amount of revenue that we got in the previous year, it doesn't automatically increase for cost of living or inflation. And so as a result of that, you can see in this chart, which I've shown you several times, over the last 16 years, that rate has gradually decreased to a lower rate. And even in 2016, when we did the tax increase, the rate was still lower than the previous year. So you can see that rate shows that the rate still continued to decrease in 2016. I found this online and I really loved it. You know, inflation silently robbing you of purchasing power since 1913. It doesn't take any of us who have to pay our own bills. It's not a stretch to understand that what we could buy for $20 in 1998 doesn't go as far today. And even though the city is not buying groceries, we do buy a lot of things, and concrete and asphalt. And primarily, we have to pay our employees. We've reviewed that 85% of the budget goes to salary and benefits. And I thought it was interesting, just a couple of days ago, I got an email from the International City Managers Association group that I'm from. It said, the survey says number one issue for state and local governments is hiring and retaining their employees. So this is an issue nationwide that cities are struggling with, and it's really important that the city maintain sort of a competitive rate with the private sector. So the proposal is just to maintain that current rate. The certified tax rate, after the tax commission ran through their process, came out lower because it's not surprised that our values increase. So what happens when values increase? The rate automatically decreases. So the certified tax rate came in at slightly under 3,103, so it came at 0.002895. So the 7.2% increase that we have to advertise by state law is not an increase in, it is an increase in the rate. It's not an increase to total property tax bill. And that's something that can be really confusing to people who haven't spent 2 years, like I have, trying to understand all of this, and 2 years like most of you have, to understand this. So that's really important. So the 7.2% rate represents the difference between 002895 and 003103. And that 7.2% just generates additional revenue for the city. Now, how that affects individual property owners is really hard to say because there's other factors that come into place. And that's why we came up with this handy-dandy calculator that we put on our website where council members and citizens can go onto the website, and you first have to go onto the Weber County. If you have your tax bill, you pull that out. If you don't, and I'm not sure if they've mailed them out yet, probably not, but they are on the county's website. So it gives you instructions on how to get to the county's website and find out what your taxable value of your property is. Now, I just pulled this number. This is a real property in Ogden City. It is not a primary residence because, and the reason I know that is because the market value and the tax value are the same. For homes in Ogden City, there is a rate reduction. So homes are charged, or taxable value is 55% of their market value.
That's just if it's their first home, their
If that's a primary residence, right. So if you have another home, but it's a rental, you're paying 100% of market, you're paying taxes on 100% of that market value. So in this case, if you can put the numbers in, put your taxable value in, it gives you what the total estimated tax will be, and that there's a caveat noted because it doesn't include any increases that other taxing entities might put in place. And we know that the Ogden City School District is proposing a tax increase, and I just don't know what that is, so I couldn't make that adjustment, and we don't know what they'll adopt. And then anyway, so then it will also calculate what that Ogden City portion of that tax will be. But what people really want to know was, well, I know how much I paid last year, how much am I going to pay this year? And so it also, you can do that comparison by showing your 2016 taxable value rate and comparing that to the 2017 taxable value rate. So I would point out that because we're maintaining the rate, in this case, this particular property had an increase of over 10% in value. And so that $63 more that this property owner will pay is due all because of the value increase in their property, because the rate that is proposed is staying the same. So all of that is going to stay the same. So if you, and this is where I have issues with the way we have to talk about this and the way we have to report it in the paper. And so this is another way of looking at it. In 2016, the average value for a property home in Ogden City was $165,000. That's gone up to $167,000 in 2017. Remember, we only pay on 55%, so this is the taxable values on those. In 2016, the rate was 003103, which means Ogden City's tax was $281. If there's no increase on a $167,000 house, let's say it's the same house, so it went up that 1% or whatever it is, there's an increase of $3. That's a difference, all due because of the increase in the value. With the certified rate, because it's a lower rate, if you adopted that, the tax value of Ogden City's portion would actually go down. and that what we have to report is the difference between the proposed rate and the certified rate. And we have to say that's an increase of $19. And to me, that's not exactly accurate because it's not really an increase until you've had to pay it, right? So I just did the brief calculation on the difference between the 2016 and the 2017 certified rate, and that, again, there's only a difference of $15, and that's due primarily to the change in the value of the home. So now they've probably got you totally confused. Any questions about that? That's why it's really good. Yeah.
I have a question. So you're saying that you were going to be proposing a tax increase to just make up the difference, right?
So
Between
the proposal is to maintain the rate.
maintain the rate.
So that will increase the revenues to the city, and
what we have now, which is 0.0031.
3103, yeah, is what is proposed.
But the difference between what was assessed so the difference between the certified rate and the proposed rate is not 7%.
In this case, it is because the values are the same, $167,000. But if the value, well, it's not exactly the same. If there had been a bigger change, most of the change comes from the change in value. Does that make sense? Because you're paying taxes on a higher value. It's just that the rate is the same. So all of it comes because of the value. If your property doesn't increase in value over 2016, you won't be paying any more. Does that make sense? Because if your property was in 2016 was $165,000, and in 2017 it's $165,000, there won't be any increase to Ogden City on yours.
So we are proposing. So the increase we're proposing is what again?
Is what?
What's the amount of tax
Well,
increase that we're proposing?
So it's a 7.2% increase, but
7.2%.
that's the difference between the 3103 and the 2895. But the trouble is it doesn't necessarily equate to 7.2% for everybody in the city, because some people's property values go up, some go down. It just means 7.2% more revenue for the city overall. So we have to look at it as a whole.
Off of the assessed, but not, it's just off of the property.
So all the
Assessed
residents are
value.
going to pay different amounts
Right.
according to the value, the increased value of their home.
Right. So if their value doesn't go up over the year, they won't pay anymore. If it does go up, they will pay more, and they would pay more than they would if you adopted the certified tax rate, if that makes sense. In this case, they would pay almost $16 more than they would if you adopted the certified tax rate.
We're keeping our dollar value or our buying power, trying to keep that level and consistent so that we don't fall behind in providing the services to the citizens of the city. And so it's really trying to stay pace with the dollar value that we have, the purchase power that we have.
Right, and that's the whole purpose for doing this, and why the proposal came from the administration, or the suggestion. It was not, the money was not programmed in the budget. If you adopt this tax increase, the 7.2%, or to maintain the rate, that does provide additional revenue for the city. So if you go to the ogdencity.com /budget process, is that the right website? There's, if for some reason the calculator's not working, there's also some written rules or written explanation on how you can generate your tax bill. So one of the things you talked about early on is some justifications for this property tax increase. And of course, citizens want to know if you're increasing their taxes, that you are using that money wisely. And the administration is working hard to implement cost-saving measures and efficiencies. And so I'm going to review just a few of these. There's some new ones here that you haven't seen before. The administration was kind enough to work to go through their budgets and find some other areas where they have done some implemented cost-saving measures. Public services, we've talked about bringing in engineering services in-house, and the saw cutting. Those are both great things that have saved the city quite a bit of money. In fire, the additional ambulance staffing through some sort of ingenious use of the way existing staffing works. We use interlocal agreements and to provide mutual aid, which means we don't have to, the Ogden City and all of the local jurisdictions do this, is that we don't have to plan for the biggest fire that we have, that we can call on other agencies if a big fire comes that we can't quite handle, and we provide the same kind of services to them. In-house training in the police department. It costs a lot of money to send people away, especially if it's out-of-state costs. So by bringing training to us and doing it in large groups, we can save a lot of travel costs. We know that the ERP is going to provide some future cost savings because it will give the directors and division managers an opportunity to more closely evaluate their budgets to see where those savings can be found.
For our citizens, could you explain ERP?
Oh, sorry. It is something resource. What's the E stand for? Enterprise resource
computer
plan.
system.
Essentially, it's a computer system. It's the computer system which allows more cleaner, easier access to the financial data that we've had for a long time, but because of the way the reporting systems worked, wasn't as easy to get out. So on the one side, there's cost-saving measures, but on the other side, there's efforts to generate more revenue. And so our business development people, have been working really, really hard and done tremendous work in this area. We have Walmart and Winco and PetSmart and Ross and Wayfair and Business Depot Ogden, which has probably saved the city over and over again over the last couple of decades because it's been able to generate additional revenue for the city. A little later on in the meeting, you're going to consider an airport agreement with Allegiant, which means some additional air flights out there. That's going to bring additional parking revenues. While that doesn't bring money to the general fund, as we know, we're subsidizing the airport, and that will offset that fund subsidy, which in itself means that money can be redirected. And we have some really great employees that are good at finding those grant monies that are getting it harder and harder to find. We've reviewed this before, comparing 1998 to FY 2018, we actually have less employees per thousand, slightly more police, but a lot fewer fire personnel. So that's clearly an efficiency. As I mentioned, 85% of our costs are involved in employee salaries and benefits. We've talked about the present value, and this is something Councilmember Stevens referenced. In 1998, the property tax that the city received, $8.7 million. If you did a present value on that, that makes it 12.8, and the proposal in the city's budget is 11.3, so almost 1.5 million less in real dollars than we had in 1998. And that, if you think about that, shows what an amazing job the administration has done in spreading those dollars as best they can. We have redistributed the way our different tax revenues come in. So property taxes in 1998 were 25% of the general fund revenues, and now they're less than 20. we're relying more on other revenues and franchise tax than we did in 1998. So this is the schedule. We're here July 11th. On August 1st, we're going to have the next virtual town hall, and this will be when you'll all participate. And then we'll have our final public hearing on August 8th. So there's lots of options for public input. We regularly monitor our social media accounts, and anytime we're welcome to take any phone calls from citizens if they're interested in have a question that they need answered. So we had our event tonight, which I think was pretty successful, and again August 1st. And with that, I just would happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Janine, is this a flat budget then that we're looking at?
Well, it's less than it was the last year. General fund is up is about 2% increase, so there is a slight increase in the budget. I think Chair White made a great observation in the previous meeting that a budget is a budget and revenues are revenues, and we're only budgeting what revenues we have, and so we may have, or what we feel we can spend. So I don't know if that answers your question. But.
Well, I was thinking that compared to other years, this is probably almost a flat budget then.
It's close. I mean, when you figure that we've had, most of the increases are for salaries and benefits. So.
Good job. That was.
Any other questions?
That's a very complicated thing, hard to explain. You did a good job. Thank you.
Yeah.
Fantastic job. This is a public hearing as well. If there's anyone that would like to address any budget items.
Seeing no movement, Chair White, I would make a motion that we continue this public hearing to August 8th.
Second. But we're not closing, we're going to continue it.
Open.
All right, we have a motion, sorry, this is way too new. Motion by Vice Chair Heyer and second by Councilmember Garner to continue the public hearing to August 8th. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Madam Chair, since we're going into the budget and looking at it, if we can, to look into the budget and see if there's any funds that we can allocate to the Lester Park development would be very helpful in that aspect there. But we'd have to go through it and see if there's any opportunities there.
All right, next on the agenda is reports from the Planning Commission.
Mr. Montgomery's here to make that presentation.
Thanks for staying.
Mark had to wake me up. He thought I was asleep. Madam Chair, members of the council, this recommendation is coming to you from the Planning Commission regarding a petition that was filed by Mark Shields. His request is to look at the city rezoning, or not actually rezoning, but adding an additional zone, what we call the 12th Street Overlay Zone, to property that he owns. And so I'll go ahead and explain what the Planning Commission looked at. Presently, a portion of his property, 8.79 acres, is zoned R110 and also 12th Street Overlay. The northern third of the property, 4.5 acres, does not have the 12th Street Overlay Zone on it, though it does have the R110 zone on it. As the petitioner looked at potential development of the property, one of his concerns was that his entire property was divided by two zones. He did not have the option for the 12th Street Overlay Zone on the upper part of his property. even though there are no physical boundaries that would separate and give you a reason why is there a difference in zoning. Just to help you understand, the 12th Street Overlay Zone was something that was developed several years ago as the 12th Street Corridor Plan was done. The citizens in that area who lived along the corridor wanted to have opportunities to do different types of development, but also wanted a process to be more streamlined, but have better design criteria. So through a process, we created the 12th Street Overlay Zone, which actually allows property owners to choose either zone to develop in, either the underlying zone, whether it be R2, R3, R1, or to go ahead and use the 12th Street Overlay Zone. The intent of the zone was that all properties that have frontage on 12th Street between Adams and the mouth of the canyon would have that option. The petitioner's property, however, as you see in that green area, only had a portion of the property having that option. We looked and tried to do some research to figure out why that occurred. We couldn't really find an explanation why that and the Rocky Mountain Power to the east were the only properties that were divided when there was a whole ownership of property. As the Planning Commission looked at it, they looked at the Horace Mann Community Plan to see, okay, what are some guiding principles that should be there. As you see in this illustrative map, there were a convergence of three different ideas coming together in this area. One, what they call the Canyon Gateway, two, mixed density residential, and three, low density transitional foothill. As that community plan was developed, then the 12th Street Overlay Plan followed. In that plan, again, in this area, it talked about canyon mixed use taking place along that Canyon Road frontage. And so as the commission looked at the two items, the Horace Mann Plan plus the 12th Street Corridor Plan, they looked at, is there physical separations to determine where an edge should be? In this illustration, you see that really the break of the hill happens above the petitioner's property. That the lower part, which is along the 12th Street and Canyon Road area, is all related to what happens on Canyon Road, while the grade break, because of the hillside and what happens above the petitioner's property, is really in a different area where single-family homes have developed. So they looked at the Horace Mann Plan. They looked at, okay, what are the real areas that you define the foothills versus those properties that are facing Canyon Road and 12th Street. This contour map, again, kind of shows that ridge line and where the grades really start to get steeper versus the areas that really look along Canyon Road. This gives you an idea of what that area looks like of the petitioner's property. And there's really no physical break between the lower and upper part of his parcel. The Planning Commission then looked at the general zoning provisions about creating edges and buffers, that the hillside and its break line really creates that buffer and edge between the single-family residential to the north and everything that's along the Canyon Road frontage. The prevailing character, everything again along that ridgeline area below to Canyon Road is multiple family development at the present time other than the power station. And also the community policy, zoning policy of not having zones cut across property lines, which in this case the 12th Street Overlay does. As the Planning Commission reviewed this, they have made a recommendation to you on a 3-2 vote to include the upper portion of the petitioner's property and also to include the Rocky Mountain property, its upper portion, so that these two areas that have been excluded for a reason we don't know, but which are all in one ownership, could then have those same options available to them. The two commissioners who voted to deny the request felt that the Horace Mann Community Plan really identified this area as the foothill area, which should be single family. So that is the reason they voted no against this. And this is item for your consideration tonight.
Any questions?
So what would go into the overlay zone? What kind of construction?
Well, it allows a variety of, it's a mixed-use zone. It allows housing, multiple-family housing, allows retail. It sets design standards in terms of, as it calls it, the canyon corridor, looking more at buildings that have maybe a heavy timbered stone appearance rather than typical brick appearance, to kind of fit in with the topography of that area and the entrance into the Ogden Canyon.
Do we know what the developer intends to do there?
We don't know for sure. He is just looking at these options. If you go back in the kind of picture I showed, he has power lines that go through the property. He would have to extend Maxfield down to connect into Canyon Road. And as he looks at all those divisions that take place, the 12th Street overlay allows him to group and bunch properties and development, given those other physical restraints. Whereas he was just under the R110 zone, he would have subdivisions, but have a lot of space that couldn't be used because of those features.
I went up there and looked at the property, and I even talked to one of the commissioners, and the reason that he gave was that he was fearful that commercial would go into the residential area. Can you address that?
Well, I think the commercial will really go to where it has high visibility. That happens along Canyon Road itself. As you go up in and become isolated, that will not be attractive for commercial type uses. That will be more of housing type uses up in those areas.
And the hill plays a factor in that also, right?
Correct.
That steep grade that
It'd be very difficult to try to develop a parking lot or other things like that for a commercial type activity.
Did you say he would have to connect Maxfield Drive?
Yes. That would extend through his property.
Okay.
So as his development schemes would have to include that.
That's in the
extension.
master plan for this?
Correct.
Okay.
What about the infrastructure that would go in that addition to Maxfield? Who would be responsible for that?
I didn't hear the first part of your question.
The infrastructure that would go into that?
He would have to develop those because those will all be part of things that would service his development.
He'd have to present that as the development agreement then?
Well, as part of his project, he would have to make those installations and put in the sewer connections and those things, because his units would all tie into those type of public streets.
And he would have to follow the 12th Street overlay zone requirements, correct?
The design standards. If he chose to go with the 12th Street overlay, he'd have to follow those design standards.
And he could do that now, just not in the extension of the
Proportion of his property.
new commercial down there, right?
Correct. He could do that now in the lower part.
I think it would be helpful if we had Mr. Shields maybe make a comment of what he envisions that to be.
I don't know if I know he was going to be in Canada, so I don't know if he has a representative. Is he here?
Is the petitioner?
Oh, he made it then. Okay.
In the back.
Chris Hartel. I represent Mark Shields, 1294 Santa Anita Drive, Kaysville, Utah. In response to your question about the commercial going up into the residential zone, that wouldn't in any factor come into play because of the slope of the hill and the nature of traffic. I don't think that would work out well at all. We have a physical separation of distance with the power lines as well as a vertical separation as well. So the plan would be to transition from the lower density into medium, higher density possibly, and then into some commercial property.
So that is a vision that's currently by the owner. That
Correct.
Do you have any kind of a sense of a timeline that you would like to get all that achieved in?
It would probably be between a year and a half from now.
Okay, so it is imminent then. Okay.
Yes.
Questions for Mr. Hartel?
Greg, is there any height restrictions on this?
Yes, there is. There's a 35-foot height limit.
And is that from Canyon Road going up, or how's
That'd
that?
be from wherever the building begins, the ground level to its
Okay.
roof, or however it steps up.
Any other questions?
Chair White, I'd like to ask a question.
Okay.
Greg, I asked the question in the work session when this came up the first time. I just wanted to, if you could remind me, what assurances do we have that this project wouldn't create similar circumstances that the Pie Pizzeria has created?
I think there's two things. One, of course, is the grade differences and the fact that there's other properties between this and some of the homes that are to the north. So this doesn't go right up against those properties that are along Maxfield itself. So you have that buffer distance of another property and the grade change. And I think the other factor is, again, it is not that close to the commercial Canyon Road potential. So you'd probably have 800 to 900 foot difference versus 40 to 50 feet difference.
How wide is that extension from north to south? Is that a couple hundred feet?
I think from north to south, I think from the property down to Canyon Road is around 950 to 1,000 feet, if I remember right.
And so the extension looks fairly uniform all the way along its length. So how wide is that part? Just
It'd be a 60-foot wide public street.
no, well,
You're talking east to west?
I'm talking about this
What is that?
extension from here to here.
Extension.
Yeah.
That was, let me just take a look here. I think that was about 250 feet.
Okay.
Chair White, can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
So Greg, this will be the only time the council sees this proposal, correct?
I didn't hear you.
This will be the only time that the council reviews this proposal for this project, correct?
Correct.
So if, when the development proposal comes forward, will the administration have an opportunity to review it? And if there are unforeseen circumstances that may arise from what's proposed, would there be opportunities for the administration to provide mitigated relief for things that may disrupt that neighborhood, like noise, similar to what we see at the Pie?
Okay, yeah. If it actually is over 40 units, it would actually go to the Planning Commission for review, and at that time it would notice the neighborhood also about the project. And given the acreage, I assume it's going to be more than 40 units. And so there would be a review process that's by the Planning Commission and would receive public notice of potential development to receive their comments.
Okay, thanks. I just want to make sure, I'm sure when the Pie Pizzeria proposal came forward, we didn't foresee what's happening now, so I just wanted to make sure there may be other opportunities in the future to intervene if we see that such circumstances could occur.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the slope is probably a barrier, as you mentioned. Is that correct?
I think it becomes a buffer, a distinction between why the lower zone being appropriate versus the single-family zone that is above it, because of that break of slope.
We have put vegetation and trees in as a buffer. Would that be plausible in this situation then?
Those are all standards that are in the ordinance for if parking or those type of things are there. Those are all standards that the ordinance has as a requirement.
He'd have to provide that type of a buffer in there. Okay.
Any other questions?
I guess I'm assuming that the proposed extension is, you talked about going from the low density to medium density and working towards the commercial, towards Canyon Road. So the current designation would not allow you to do what you're proposing to do? with medium density, I guess residential is what you're talking about, right?
Correct.
And it wouldn't suffice at the current zoning?
Right. This would allow us to do some clustering as well within the development. And with the power station, the upper portion where the high-tension power lines run through, that would allow us to pull back off those lines and create more of a green space.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
and I think even give us more of a separation from, I think there's only 3 houses that we actually border.
That's about what it looks like. Yeah, okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Because the zone behind there is R110 as well, right? This zone.
I don't know.
This one right here.
I don't think it's R110. Along Maxfield, what's the zoning there, Greg?
That's what this says.
Is that what it says?
Yeah, so the one directly behind it is the same zone.
Oh, okay.
If I'm looking at that correctly.
They're not on 10,000 square foot lots, it doesn't look like, though. So, okay.
No, this, all this open space.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So
that's-
it's only really disrupting 3 or 4 houses.
Right.
That's what I'm looking at.
Uh-huh.
All right, any other questions? All right. Yeah, so it's an opportunity to receive input regarding this property located on East Canyon Road. Does anyone like to give input? We're slowly losing people. All right.
Since we've kind of run out of people, I will make a motion that we adopt proposed ordinance 2017-34.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Heyer, second by Councilmember Lopez to adopt proposed ordinance 2017-34. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Gardner.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Vice Chair Heyer.
Aye.
Chair White.
Aye, that passes.
You know, this is the kind of thing that this overlay zone was designed for. It sounds kind of exciting. I'm happy that they're going to develop this, and in this way, it'll work really good for the city, I think. So, good job.
My biggest concern is to protect the residential area, and I think with the layout of the land and with the overlay zone, we probably have adequate protection in that aspect there. So, but it's important for us to take a look at any of that situation, because that was one of the concerns of one of the citizens, is he wanted to make sure the residential area would be protected. And
All right, next on the agenda is reports from administration, air service contract.
Tom Kostopoulos will be presenting.
Chair White, Councilman, this is a presentation on the Allegiant contract. Just by way of background, to review just the starting of the process was initiated as we began to get an initial proposal from one of the bidding airlines, and as we determined we needed to go out for an RFP, of which we received 2 formal proposals and a letter of interest. From those, we basically came down to a negotiation with Allegiant on the contract terms. So this, as far as the background goes, this is how we came into the process, which was outlined in the feasibility study that was presented in 2015. In section 1.1 of the feasibility study, it actually outlined the proposal of the airlines that we could pursue, which we did pursue. One of those was Allegiant. And so with this particular proposal, it fulfills that first part of the Ogden 2015 feasibility study. That feasibility study looks carefully, as we've talked about, at trying to generate additional revenues to the airport, which are currently losing between $500,000 and $750,000 a year, or being subsidized more accurately from the general fund. So during that feasibility study, the airline recruiting was outlined, which we have done. Also, the creation of additional jobs, and by just way of information, the general feasibility study indicated that we could generate another $4,000 off the 4,000 jobs off the continued development of the airport to date, and 2 years into the feasibility study. There have been 440 new jobs, Northrop Grumman at 260, Aero at 80 jobs, and Foresight at 50 jobs. So that both of those elements now continue to move the feasibility study done. The feasibility study then, as we went ahead and fulfilled that, allowed us to fulfill the contract. Allegiant's proposal begins and was proposed would provide round-trip service to LAX, Los Angeles, beginning October 5th, 2017. Round-trip service to LAS, which is Las Vegas, beginning November 17. And then a subject agreement on round-trip service to Oakland on January 1st, and the potential service on January 1st, 2019 to Orlando. Allegiant will operate the normal pre-flight and flight passenger services as they have always done in our original flights to the Phoenix area, to Mesa Pacific specifically. And we will begin working with our own promotion, and Allegiant will do their own promotions for the flights. And the agreement is suggested for 3 years. The agreement may be terminated by either party with notice under 45 days notice. The reason for that is two parts. If the flights do not go as we planned, it helps us limit our liability, also helps limit the liability of Allegiant as we go through the contract terms. So what the contract specifically suggests is that there is a revenue participation. We have a guarantee, if you will, of each flight. So the LAX guarantee is $5,122. Any of the revenue that is below that or up to that amount. So if we were completely empty, so assume that nobody were to show up for the flight, our exposure would be $5,122 for that flight. And then for LAS, it's $5,000. Las Vegas, excuse me for referring to that as the other, would be $5,452. Oakland would be $5,229. And so the most expensive of those flights, it would be if we ever got to Orlando and in that particular flight. So it also allows us a revenue share if we go in excess revenues over $19,000, we would share 40% in the profits and 60% at Las Vegas over the revenues of $13,648. So, and Oakland is participation is above $18,122. So what does that look like in real terms as far as, what is the likelihood of the real exposures that we have? We have been flying at about 90% of seat availability for the last 4 years since we began Mesa. And so our exposures, basically our break even is if we were to follow the same pattern at $88 a seat in Los Angeles and roughly $64 in Las Vegas, we would face no exposure if we hit the same seat occupancy rates, which is the way the models are built through Allegiant system. So the additional way that this works is that we don't pay for, if there's a shortage, basically we do a ledger account. So we basically reconcile the ledger account as we go through on all destinations. If we have a credit to Allegiant for shortfalls or debits for revenues owed to the city, we provide a monthly report. Allegiant's required to provide a monthly report to the city. So if we are in a profit status, they provide that report. We carry forward the balance. If there is a plus balance, if there's a negative balance, we carry that forward and we reconcile within 30 days. So that limits our exposures as we go down the road to the aggregate, and then also helps us decide if something were in the worst case, we can draw a line on the flights within 45 days and determine whether we want to continue forward or whether we want to go forward. To give you another indication of, we have broken even on the Mesa flight from day one. We've had very few flights that have fallen below the break even. So if we were to continue that forward, we would still have those particular results. Our hopes are that we get a reduction in the airport operating leases through our parking revenues, additional landing and fuel flowage fee revenues would also be a contributor, which we did not have in our initial contract with Allegiant. So this time we're getting those full amount in. It'll help us with our business attraction and also with our further attraction of additional flights. We actually have a negotiation starting Thursday with another national carrier that's already starting to bear fruit because of the additional exposure of the airport. It will provide us additional hopes on the FAA grant funds. It won't really increase our $1 million, but it gives us, if we need additional improvements, we'll be able to apply for those. So, and obviously the economic benefits through increased tourism to the area, and those are our hopes. A couple of questions came up so hopefully you'll understand the terms of the contract. They're relatively simple. The exposures are extremely limited. So there were two budgetary amounts that were asked for originally that are standby. There's $500,000 set by basically to cover operating losses or flight support costs. In that we are asking for to stay in place. If those dollars are not used, which we don't believe they will be, those will be remitted back to the general fund budget. There's $250,000 that was set aside for parking lot improvements. Originally, we thought the parking lot improvements would be more significant than they are. We still need to do some improvements for bathrooms because we really need to freshen up our look as we're bringing more people in, and also to light, for safety reasons, the parking area. Those exact budgets will be presented at a later date to administration. We haven't got those prepared yet, as we've been kind of in a state of flux as we finished up the negotiations. So that's the recommendations that we have from the administration, is that we go forward with the contract. We think this is a great second step. We had the first step. It's not the final step by any means, but it is a progressive step towards having the airport fully activated commercially and creating more, eventually, this tourism opportunity, but then eventually also business flights into the airport. So it also fulfills what the feasibility suggested was possible, and so it continues to move down through the feasibility study and demonstrate that the feasibility study roadmap is one that is viable and can move forward. So with that, I don't know if there are questions.
Tom, I want to thank you for the work that you've done on this. How many flights will we have a week in each week?
Each two. There will be two flights, one back and one up. So there's just the same as the Mesa. There is some provisions that we may have increased flights like we have done in the past. So during peak periods, we may have more flights during the winter months, as we have done. And so that is a call that is made strictly by Allegiant. They'll determine that, but the minimum guarantee is the flight in and flight out weekly.
So we'd have 2 from Phoenix and 2 from LA and 2 from Las Vegas?
Las Vegas.
Okay.
Right, and then eventually Oakland in January.
And on the promotions, to fill up the plane, is it the Legion's responsibility to do that, or is this a joint venture?
The Legion's responsibility is to promote the flight and the airplane seats. We have a supportive responsibility, which we'll do through what's called the Small Airport Grant, which is to generate more recognition of the airport. So in essence, we support the flight. We can't really advertise Allegiant with that grant, but we advertise that we have more flights, we have better destinations. It's a fun place to fly out of. We are applying for that grant as soon as the authorization is given by Congress. So it's a joint effort. It's just 2 ways of approaching the market.
How much is that grant?
The grant can be up to $500,000. I don't know if that's what we will get. We won't know till we apply, and Congress has got to determine how much money is available before we can even apply.
So the money set aside, is it set aside in an escrow account? I mean, can we touch it?
The money, it was in the budget, so it was done in the 17th budget. It's basically controlled by our accounting department, and we would basically submit, in essence, that monthly reconciled dollar. So if there's a loss, for example, during the first month of operations, and let's say it was $50,000, we'd basically submit that, a check would be cut. If there's excess funds, it just goes into the general fund set-aside budget. It'll be reallocated at the end of when administration decides that we are out of, in essence, at the exposure period. After the first year, if the flights are doing what they did before, there's no reason to keep the money aside. The money that is earned has to stay on the airport. The fund that's there has to stay on the airport. Will go to reduce costs and subsidies from the general fund. So if we made any type of money at all, let's say it's $50,000 to $100,000, that would reduce then the subsidy that we have at the airport.
And then just 2 questions. The contract will be, if passed tonight, it'll be effective, I mean, it'll be signed.
And it'll be effective as soon as they start flying. So as far as our accounting,
July, as soon as we sign the contract.
Sign it, then it really won't really do anything until they start flying, but the contract will be in effect as soon as we sign it.
Are we still working with some stakeholders in this process also in the area?
Are you referring to the general aviation or just to the commissioners? Or
yeah, the Weber County and Davis County.
I'm still talking to them, but the tone of the conversation, quite frankly, has changed. And we'll have that continued conversation in August. It's, in essence, now we really don't need the help, but the issue is whether the interest is there for them to buy in to the long term of the airport is a discussion that we'll continue to have. At this particular point, if they choose not to buy in, we really don't need them, quite honestly. But whether they choose to want to really be invested in the airport is a different conversation.
We'll show them how successful we are.
I would maybe make one amendment to that. We don't need them currently in the situation we're proposing. If things change radically, then that could change also.
We may need them with other airlines. And so we still have to have, we may have to have them for other recruiting that we're doing. Because other airlines, if they propose more flights or other things, we may need some financial assistance. We don't know that yet. So we'll come back to you as those things develop.
I think they're great partners because we can branch out into Davis County with the development that's happening there in Weber County. So I think they're still a great partner for us.
Well, I think there is a potential there. We just have to make the case. So we will continue to pound on them some more.
That's a good word.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, I make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2017-14.
I second it.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Heyer, second by Councilmember Stevens to adopt proposed proposed resolution 2017-14. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Gardner.
Aye.
Vice Chair Heyer.
Aye.
Chair White.
Aye, that passes. Thank you for all your work. Next on the agenda is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council members with any ideas.
We've run out of people. We've got two candidates and they just smile.
All right. Seeing no movement, comments from the mayor?
I would like to call out 3 employees on this air service. There's been a lot of time and effort spent on this over the last few months. And Tom and Gary and Mel Smith of our attorney staff have spent hours and hours and hours and hours, and I am very grateful for their hard work. I think this is a good incremental growth in the airport, and I think there's more possibilities that will be coming, so I think it's a good thing. Second, we've talked about Twilight often, but we haven't since the month ended. That was the most amazing month of concerts I think the city's ever had. And the attendance and the energy and the tired eyes of our event staff was just off the charts. And we're really, really grateful for that. And I know next year we only have 4 Thursdays. They're already considering maybe adding a 5th either in July or in May, because they've had a lot of requests to continue it at 5 instead of going to 4 next time. So that turned out really, really well. Farmers Market has started off with a bang and is going very, very well. And if you haven't had a chance to get down here on a Saturday, we encourage you to do that. It's a great market. Downtown Alliance is doing a wonderful job in operating the market, and we feel very good about that. One last thing, we've had a pretty seamless conversion to Munis. Munis is the new accounting software that we just converted to this last several month or two. We went live this last week. It's been 19 years since this city had new software. And I have been around a lot of software conversions in my career in different businesses. I have never seen one this smooth. I have never seen one go this well. Our staff has been amazing just to keep the wheels on the bus while we move to this. So I just want you to know it's that's an amazing accomplishment. And there's a lot of people who have worked very, very hard to make that happen. So we're very happy with that. And I wish you a happy 24th, and I hope you go to all the events and that you wear your hat and your boots. And we could probably get you on a bowl if you really want.
I was going to wonder if I could get in that mutton busting thing. That looks like something I could do. Never mind.
On record, I don't really want to make a comment to that, but afterwards I will.
It was just since you said what you did, I thought I'd chime in.
I have to relate to what Marcus said. I had a daughter fly in from Austin, Texas, and she went to the Twilight series, and she was just astounded by that. And she grew up here, and she says, "Gosh, look at all the stuff that's happening here." And I go away and then come back, and I have to enjoy it. So it was just a great event for her and coming in from Texas. But I have to echo also about the farmers market. There's everything for everybody there at the farmers market. There are tons of people going through it, and it adds a vibration and a vibrant to our city. It gives us something to do, and it relates to the local producers to sell their goods, and that's a good thing. And so I agree with Mark. This is probably one of the most successful years we've ever had in the farmers market. Today, we're going into the Pioneer Days, and there are parades, and there are concerts, there are rodeos to go to, there are devotionals to go to, fireworks. We have a myriad of things that are happening here, but I want to make a shout out and thank, I think Jay has a lot to do with it, but putting out the painted horses. They really add a spirit of Pioneer Days when those painted horses go out on the street. We know that something is happening, and that's a good thing that we need to do. So I think we've got a lot of things happening, and as we looked at the airport, I go back several years ago when we were considering the junction. And there was a lot of naysayers that says the junction's not going to work. But now the junction is a gathering place and an activity generated center for our city. It goes hand in hand with 25th Street, and how great or beneficial that junction is for our community. And I see the airport doing the same thing. It'll have an impact to our community. It'll add vitality, it'll add economic development, opportunities for us, and it'll have the same type of an impact that the junction has for our city here. So I'm very pleased with the opportunity of moving this along and seeing the airlines coming into and the destinations that we have. So we are living in a great place, and I enjoy it immensely.
Yes, Chair Wright, I hope our citizens have enjoyed the outreach that we've done for the budget. I hope they've, through the explanations, have understood it a little better and recognized the thousands of hours that go into making sure that we are wise in our choices on how to spend taxpayer money. That's what this is all about, is to make sure that we're wise stewards and to make Ogden as good as we can with the resources that's available. Our staff, our administrative staff, our planning staff has been wonderful through this process. I was just bearing with Janine up there trying to explain this very complicated thing. It's just really hard to explain. And but it does take a long time before you finally kind of wrap your mind around this fund accounting process. And so I appreciate the explanations. So I hope our citizens can be more involved. I hope this is the most important thing we do, as Councilmember Nadolski pointed out. And I hope our citizens will also give input that is valuable. And I know that nobody likes taxes and those kind of things, but if we get input that is productive, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for good, productive input from our citizens, and I hope they engage us in that.
I just want to make a comment with President Mercier and how wonderful of a partner she's been, but how wonderful a partner that OWATC has been, and just watching Ogden's partnerships and relationships grow, whether that's Weber State or OWATC or the other businesses around. I think it's people like Colette that really makes it happen. And so I thank all of us for reaching out to our partners as well and being good partners and stewards to them as well. So, all right. Next on our agenda is a closed executive session.
Chair White, I would make a motion that we move into a session.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Heyer, second by Councilmember Lopez to move into the closed executive session. They roll call vote.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Gardner.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Vice Chair Heyer.
Aye.
Chair White.
That passes. And just as a note, we will be adjourning after the closed executive session, so we will not be returning to this room.